right? It's like, it's your fault, man. You weren't ready. You weren't ready. The moment of truth, you weren't ready. So are you ready? Are you prepared? Can you handle that moment, of truth? And most can't. And that's what the prospects are picking up on. I tell people all the time, if you get a common objection, if you get one objection all the time, you're telegraphing. You're doing something to invite that objection.
Welcome to Success Is, the podcast where we uncover the mindsets, habits, and strategies that fuel exceptional success in life and business. I'm your host, Phil Portman. Today's guest is a true powerhouse of performance, achievement, and discipline. He's a former U.S. Air Force officer, a Division I linebacker, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, and the proud father of 7. But his impact doesn't stop there. Wes Schaeffer has trained thousands of sales professionals, managers, entrepreneurs, and business owners across 29 countries, teaching them how to sell more, sell faster, with higher margins, less stress, and more enjoyment. He's the founder of the Sales Whisperer, a sought-after speaker, author, and expert in building predictable, scalable sales systems that actually work. Wes, I'm excited to have you on the show. Welcome to Success Is.
Hey, Phil. Thanks for having me on.
So let's kick it off. What does success mean to you?
Man, success means living life on your own terms, setting your own schedule, doing what you want to do, when you want to do it, the way you want to do it, with the people you want to do it with.
Couldn't agree with you more. It's a driving motivator, and me getting into entrepreneurship was, in the corporate world, I was told where to be and when to be there and all that. And I said, I don't want my kids being raised by a single mother. I want to be a part of their life, Yeah. And that was what ultimately drove me to entrepreneurship. So can you take us back to the beginning? What first inspired you? I mean, your move from the Air Force to the world of sales and entrepreneurship. Kind of walk us through that journey.
Man, I'm stubborn, pig-headed, determination, being impatient, not knowing what I didn't know. I look back, I can't believe I went to the Air Force Academy, and actually today is our 33rd anniversry of graduating from there, class of 92. Thank you. And I don't know how I made it through. I got in a lot of trouble. I have no problem. I can follow the rules, right? But they got to be good rules. They got to be smart rules. I question everything. And so I actually turned down pilot training. Things were hectic then. I graduated right after the first Gulf War. The military was drawing down, and you basically had to sign up for 12 years if you wanted to be a pilot, because they were banking guys. So they basically gave you a desk for up to 3 years, then a year pilot training, then you owed 8. So it was a 12-year commitment. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want to do that. So I got a plan B through the Air Force, and did my 5 years, and got out as soon as I could. And I was married. I got married in 95, got out in 97, we had a baby, another one on the way. And I jumped into commission sales, and it was hard. But, I wanted to be paid according to my production, not just my time and grade. And so lots of ups and downs, lots of lessons learned the hard way. And but I'm still alive and kicking, and helping others, shorten their learning curve so they don't get the same scars that I got. It's okay to go learn things on your own, but don't go learn things somebody else already learned. Go make your own mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. So commission sales, entrepreneurship, really high risk, but can be really high reward.
Sure.
The difference between the W-2 and cutting that safety net and going off on your own is a chance for you to take your destiny in your own hands. Was there a defining moment for you when you knew that you wanted to help others master sales?
Oh no. In the military, especially the academy, you get a lot of time learning how to lead, how to communicate, how to handle stressful situations. When I was on active duty, my last job for a couple of years, I was an instructor. I liked it. I was always good at it. I don't know. I've got common sense. I can kind of see and connect the dots, and then I can help others do the same. And so I actually bought a 12-week class in late '05. It started in early '06, and it was a 12-week teleclass. It was before Facebook, before video calls, before social media groups and Zoom and school and Telegram and Signal and WhatsApp and Discord and, oh, good grief, like how many places can we communicate with each other, right? So back then it was just a phone call. It was a recorded conference call and a PDF, and it changed my life. And I hit it off with the instructor. He took a liking to me. He helped me one-on-one. We didn't have to in the middle of those 12 weeks, and he was expanding. I became his first licensee, and I made the shift. I made the shift out of corporate America into doing my own thing, and it was rough, but again, I was stubborn, and I always made good money in sales, and we were always saved our money. So we had that rainy day fund, um, and so I had the cushion, I had the runway to go out on my own. And so I mean that's an important part. And I don't think everybody needs to go out on their own. I mean, my good friend and an early mentor to me, he's never been on his own. He's literally the number one sales rep in the world for a Fortune, I think they're a Fortune 50 company.
Wow.
That guy's made more money than I ever have, right?
Mm.
Being in corporate America, but literally best in the world. So, but I couldn't stomach it, right? I mean, all the travel, and he would call me. He would call me monthly, like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm like, dude, you're not done, because he never got into management. He was always an individual producer, and he's about to retire, but he could have retired years ago. But he's stubborn like me a little bit, but set in his ways, but still relatively young. And yeah, I don't think we're meant to retire truly. That was a farce. That comes from the late 1800s from Prussia. And that's a whole nother topic. But now you're not supposed to die at your desk either, right? So you got to find that happy medium. But I don't think you're supposed to just ride out into the sunset and sit on your front porch and and just die in a rocking chair. So anyway, but yeah, selling. I think they say it's the second highest profession behind, like, I think it was like orthopedic surgeons or something like that. So, but with a whole lot less debt, right, and a whole lot less formal
Right.
schooling.
Yeah, you don't need a
Still a
college
lot of
degree
schooling.
to get into sales, right? You don't need a degree. You can be
Yeah,
self-taught and take
yep,
courses and educate yourself, right?
that's it.
Yeah.
Hustle, pay attention.
Yeah.
Communicate, right? I talk about doctors with bedside manner. What is that bedside manner? It's like, do they look you in the eye? Do they hear you? Do they understand you? Do they reassure you that they've heard you and understood you? Then you trust their diagnosis. Then you trust their prescription. So sales is the exact same thing.
Yeah. Has your sales strategy evolved at all over the years? I'm just curious if, especially in this age where things are often done virtually more so than face to face, has it changed with technology and time at all?
No, um, I started selling software on my own in 2008, and still to this day, I've probably met 1% of my clients face to face. I was using Skype, I was using WebEx, and when I got started, so I got started in '06. I bought the domain name. I didn't have a website. I didn't have a merchant account. I didn't have any kind of e-commerce platform. I had no marketing automation, none of these systems, right? And so I found one. I became a certified partner there. So I used it and then I sold it and made a lot of money with them. But selling that software, I did it online. I
Mm.
made YouTube videos, I made PDFs and free reports and nurture sequences, and would do demos over WebEx. The free account. I think you could do like 45 minutes back then, and you couldn't record it, and a limited number of people. But I was bootstrapping everything, so I was like, I got as many free or super low cost applications as I could. So, so the fundamentals just never change. It's harder now. It's noisier now to reach people. But what you must do to connect with another human, that'll never change in our lifetime.
Yeah. Well, on that same subject, you've trained professionals in 29 different countries. Is there any universal principles?
Well, I haven't been in 29 countries, but they've come to me from 29 countries.
Sure. Is there universal principles that spread across cultures when it comes to sales, or do you have to change it for different countries?
It's mostly the same because again, it's human to human, and now there are cultural differences and maybe the pace and how you address people, things like that. I was stationed in Korea, traveled through Thailand, was deployed to the Middle East a couple times. I've traveled with my son. We've gone down to Buenos Aires and Patagonia and London, and spoke in Slovenia once, and we went to India. And again, people are people. Americans actually are not very good at sales. We don't haggle naturally, and at least we don't do it comfortably, right? When I was in Korea in '93, I mean, I started really learning, like, oh crap, we can haggle. You walk through the towns, and we called it the Ville, right? The little village outside of the base, and everything was negotiable. So I started learning about that, and then being in the Middle East, going through the souks, in Abu Dhabi, and the haggling that was you could do and you were expected to do. But still, the norms are there. Treat people right. You want to stay on their good side. If you're not embarrassed by your offer, it's not low enough. That one's a tough one for Americans, especially. My son's in real estate, and he does creative financing, creative deals, so he has no problem going low. And a typical traditional agent, I mean, they'll legit get offended. It's like, it's not your house, man. Yeah, I know
Put
it
the
says,
offer through. Yeah.
yeah, it says it's $1 million. You listen for $1 million. Okay, here's my offer, $500,000. Give them the offer. It's
Yeah.
like relax, man. It's just a starting point.
Yeah.
But people are funny, man. But around the world, they're tougher. Haggling is more
Yeah.
accepted.
From personal experience, I've had negotiations with like Middle Eastern customers, and I had a third party with me watching our interaction. And from his perspective, it looked like we were fighting, like we were having an argument. The tone was different than other people we dealt with. And at the end of it, we shook hands and had a meal together. And that was how we interacted. It was a lot of mirroring what they were, putting off, and just understanding that that's what it was. And so personally, when I dealt with different cultures like that, that was probably one of the biggest things that I picked up, was like the tonality and the way that they were doing it would be from another culture perceived as outright aggressive, often, but that's just the way they dealt with, in business. I was curious if you saw anything of that in your interactions as well.
Oh, you see that not only internationally, but even within the states, right? If you sell up in the Northeast, it's much faster pace, slower pace in the South, kind of in between in the West. And so, and it's kind of the same when you understand buying personalities, buying types, you get hard charging, drivers. I mean, sometimes you got to push back. I know me, like, I'm an easy sale. Once you get through. Okay. But being in sales, being a sales trainer, like, I'm hard on salespeople at first. And if they wither and walk away with their tail between their legs, like, they're not getting another chance. So you deal with the driver, you can push them and be almost rude. And there's a line, of course, but you can go hard on people when their buying type. And so, and it's our job as salespeople to recognize it. We have to sell the way that our prospects buy. Okay, so if I'm dealing with somebody in the South and they're slow talking, and, well, Mr. West, how the heck are you? Okay, that's kind of like in the Middle East, right? It's very formal, very cordial. Like, let's have some tea. Let's ask about the family. You have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You deal with other cultures, you, boom, get right down to business. Eastern Europe or whatever. I mean, just let's get down to brass tacks. Then we can have a drink. And but it's that way across the U.S. as well. And so, but most people, they don't adjust. That's why most salespeople are struggling. They've got their PowerPoint presentation, they've got their slide deck, they've got their brochure, they got to go through all of it. They've taken time to put it together and memorize it. And by golly, you're going to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, good luck with that.
Yeah. They're not meeting
So
their people where they're at. They're trying to get them to meet them where they are. Right. So,
yeah, you deal, and you got to realize, like, you are not your customer. Okay. If you're very methodical, you want to read everything, and you see this as very expensive and this is a high risk investment, then you're going to put off those vibes. But when you meet with a decision maker, maybe they're wealthy, maybe they got in charge of a big company or a big division, and they have the assets, and this is a pain point for them. They can sign a check for 10 grand, 50 grand, $1 million. Who knows what? Like, they can authorize very large purchases, or at least move the ball forward quickly on very large deals. Because to you, it's a large deal. Like, it's $1 million. I sold $1 million of hardware to Google at one time, 15 plus years ago. So $1 million is a lot. To Google, that's a rounding error, right? They spend $1 million a week in orange juice.
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, it's not a big deal.
It's all perspective.
Now that was a big part of my entire quota for the year. So, but you can't act like it.
Yeah.
So you've got to understand who you're dealing with. Like literally the old commercial. Never let them see you sweat. You've got to be calm. Zig Ziglar talked about that. We sell one thing, and that's confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So are you confident in what you're putting forward and what you're offering, what you're asking? Because that's what they're going to buy. And people say that a dog can sense fear, and it's like humans can sense fear even better.
Yeah.
But it's a little different. It's like, you ever wonder why hunters get all this camouflage and stick bushes and twigs and leaves in their hats and paint their faces, and then they put on a bright orange vest?
Hmm.
Right? It's like, because animals really don't have very good eyesight.
Yeah.
Birds of prey have great eyesight. We have great eyesight. Most animals don't. But what they can detect is movement. That's why I say be very still, because they'll hear something, they'll look right at you and not see you. But when you move, oh, they're off. They're gone. So we as humans, so what happens with us, we detect a change in demeanor and confidence. I'm sitting here, it's like, oh yeah, Phil, this is the best camera ever, best iPhone, best screen, best dude, you really need this, and it's got all this, and these pixels, and this much storage, and this kind of resolution, and connected this LTE 5G super high speed, blah blah blah. And you go, that's great. I'm looking at it for my company. How much can we get? If we buy 20 of them, how much are they? And then hold on. Ruffle. Look, 1 minute, 20, like this quarter. Can I put you on hold? And so
Yeah.
now you look over at your partner. You look over the VP of Ops, look over the CFO, and you're like, was that weird?
Yeah. Should I be talking to somebody else right now? Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you were ready to go. Like, I'm sold, man. I just didn't know how much.
Yeah.
So that shift, that change, like, you know what? Hey, like, we got to go. When you find that info, just go ahead and send it over.
Yeah.
And now the salesperson, all these buyers are liars. I got ghosted as soon as we started talking about price. They start passing the blame.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, it's your fault, man.
Yeah.
You weren't ready. You weren't ready. The moment of truth, you weren't ready. So are you ready? Are you prepared? Can you handle that moment, of truth? And most can't. And that's what the prospects are picking up on. I tell people all the time, if you get a common objection, if you get one objection all the time, you're telegraphing it. You're doing something to invite that objection into your life. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, so if you ask me, well, Wes, how much is a phone? I go, well, Phil, normally it's $1,200. So if I say that, what would your response be, Phil, if I answered that way?
What can you do for me? Yeah, what can you do for me on that? If normally implies that there's another price I can
Right.
get.
So
Absolutely.
then I go back to my boss. Our stuff is too high. Everybody wants a better price.
Yeah.
And the boss is like, well, Joe, he has the territory next to you. He sells at full price, and he's done twice as many deals in half the time. Well, he's just a better territory, and they don't realize that the tonality, the verbiage, the words that we use. You've got to, if you want to get great, record yourself. When I was learning golf, I recorded myself. Went to a golf pro. He filmed me. I want to get better at speaking. I took a course. They filmed me. I would go sit in a cubicle with an old VHS tape and headphones and watch myself. When I hired Steve Clark, I had to buy this device and plug it into my phone and record my calls. And he would listen to them with me. So if you want to get good, record yourself and it's easy now, all the software they have out now, but, hire somebody sit next to you to listen in. You'll get much better very fast. It's not like you got to do, 1,000 hours with these people. I mean, do 5, do 10. You'll be so much better than you ever thought you could.
It's like watching football
it's
tape.
raw.
Huh? Yeah.
No, totally. Yeah, I mean, we used to watch game film, and like like the good play. Nice play, Schaeffer. Next,
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
What are you doing there? Yeah.
We went over this. What were you thinking? We went over this. What were you? You have brain damage. You have a concussion. Are you dehydrated? Schaeffer, what happened? What happened? Like, can we move? I know, coach. Can we move on? Nope. We're going to keep watching.
Yeah, you can't. There's no lying about it. It's on tape, right? That's right.
But you get better that way, right?
You do. It's the best way to get better. It's on tape.
So we're talking about sitting in a room with everybody.
Bringing our kids up to success, right? You're a father just like I am, and I want my son to be successful in life. And I think about one of the things that really, two of the things that really made me successful in life were communication and sales. And early on, one of my first jobs was like selling door to door, like in the streets of Detroit, like knocking on doors, getting doors slammed in my face and that sort of thing.
What were you selling?
Vacuums. I was selling Kirby vacuums door to door.
High school, college?
And probably right when I graduated, maybe 18 years old, going up to these doors and offering them, like, I can't even remember, something for free, like paper towel or something like that, right? And when you start off, they put you in the worst neighborhoods, right, to get started with. And but I think that shaped me.
Totally it did.
Public speaking, the best thing that ever happened to me for public speaking was the day before I was getting on for a keynote. They introduced me, and this crowd of people booed me. And I said,
why?
Well, there's some changes and regulations, and we were a business, and they didn't like the changes. Everyone else followed suit afterwards, but we were the first ones to do it, and they were upset about it. And, it's salespeople, right? You know how it is. And but what that did was, that was the worst case. You're getting on in front of 200 hungover individuals who just booed you the night before to give a keynote. What are you afraid of after that? I mean,
yeah, that's it.
That's it. So sales was kind of the same way for me.
Funny story.
Starting off. What was that you're saying?
I was a meteorologist in the Air Force. Okay. So I'm stationed in Korea, 93, 94. We had the oldest operational equipment in the active Air Force. And upstream from us was the Yellow Sea and Siberia. Because all weather is just math, and weather just models what is happening upstream. Because if you're 100 miles from me and you're getting rain, well, let me plot it. Here's the wind. Okay. And 3 hours, I'm going to get rain probably. Right. So, I mean, it's simplified, but you do a lot of observations, connect the dots, predict the future. So we had no real data upstream. So, and we had old equipment. So we did a lot of guessing. We were weather guessers. And so twice a day I'd have to go over and brief the F-16 squadron. So you ever watch like Top Gun and everybody's, sitting there in their flight jackets. It's just full of testosterone. That is 100% accurate. Guys busting each other's chops over everything and anything. And now here comes this weather guy, So what I had going for me, one was I'm a big guy. So even being a weather guesser, they're going to slow their roll a little bit. Like, well, that 225-pound dude, if you're going to pick on him, do it from across the room. So that kind of helped. But I was also, I was fun, right? Played sports. I'm like, I can take abuse, but I'm going to dish it out too. And so I always went first. They just wanted me out of the way because it was mandatory, but they didn't really care. Right. So they would do a time hack. I get their watches. Okay. 07:30 hack. Okay. Time hack. It's something else. And these were old acetate. Right. So the gooseneck projector. So there, flip the slide, and I carry acetate slides. I just would go through it, and they had a slide weather. So, it was an auditorium, like a theater. So I'd sit in the front row or on the edge. I could walk right up. It snowed a lot, and missions were wrecked. Guys couldn't land. They had to, they're diverted to another base. And so the next day I go up, okay, time hack, blah, 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 weather. And they go, wait. And they had a slide. They just hand wrote it. Wes is a liar. Projected on like a movie theater size screen, right? And I'm in front of there'd be like 20 guys in a briefing, maybe, like not hundreds, but not like one or two. 20, couple dozen, and they're busting up. Whoa, what do you have to say for yourself? Blah, blah, blah. And so I walked up and I stood right in the center of the stage, and I just crossed my arms. And look, I'm 23 years old, right? I'm a meteorologist in front of 20 F-16 fighter pilots deployed 60 miles from a communist leader with a 1 million-man army, right?
Yeah.
And I stood there and I waited, and I went and got dead silent. They're just looking at me they're like, did I have a stroke? Am I having a seizure? And they go, what do you have to say for yourself? And I watch. And I go, oops. And that's what happened. They go,
yeah, that's
because the guy I replaced, they would make excuses,
Yeah.
Oh, there was this upper level disturbance and this low pressure system moved in, and it was accentuated by low level moisture. I'm like, fellas, oops, it happens.
It happens. Absolutely.
And they're like, all right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you build trust. I was just talking to this marketing guy today, and he said, if you want to build trust, display weakness, vulnerability, or a flaw. That's what people want. They want humans, not robots that are perfect. They want humans.
But then they manufacture it.
Yeah.
They manufacture authenticity. I'm just trying to be transparent. I know a guy who tells the same story all over and over again, how he cheated on it wasn't his wife. They were engaged. I think they might not even been engaged. They were dating. It's like, okay, yeah, it's, he fooled around with an old girlfriend before another girlfriend. He's parlayed that into millions. And I'm like, okay, well, good for you, but I can't hear the story anymore.
Yeah, I guess
it's
right.
It's like, yeah, man, y'all weren't married. That's why you date. That's why you get engaged, right? But anyway, yes. I know a guy, he says, wear glasses. Because when you put on glasses, even if you take them off right away, it increases response rate or connectivity 15 or 20%, But it is true. Because if you seem too polished, David Copperfield, the magician, the same guy who taught me that little statistic, he was so well rehearsed and such a perfectionist in his shows that he scripted in a fall. So I think he would go down and come up the stage and trip on one of the steps. That was planned.
Okay. To make it more believable.
that because he was so meticulous, So yes, all that's true. Just be careful faking your authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can still be truthful in your authenticity, I think. So,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, have fun, and like everything, like you gotta be careful, right? I love that self-deprecating humor, but
mhm,
you gotta understand your role. If you're being brought in to like lead and take charge to turn around something, you know, maybe that's not the time. Maybe it is a time to have that persona of tough, perfectionist, blah blah blah, and then the team kind of starts to win. You get some results. You kind of let your hair down. But my daughter's a school teacher, and but I use that example all the time. When a teacher comes in on day one, you got to crack the whip.
mhm.
You know, no cell phones, no music, no gum, no food, no snacks, not even water. You will be in your seats when the whistle blows and the bell rings. You will not be moved until I dismiss you. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. And then you can lighten up. If you show up, hey, it's all good. Bring a pizza, throw donuts around. It's all good. You're
Okay,
going
yeah,
to lose them, right? You got to
right.
be tough and then ease into it. So you gotta figure out that pace and the right demeanor for the audience and for the mission.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Wes, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate your insight today. For our listeners who want to follow what you have going on, how do they get in touch with you?
I'm easy to find on all the social medias, and if you connect with me and hear from me, it'll be me, right? I don't sub that out, but I have a daily newsletter. Not even a newsletter; it's an email. It's text only, and I share some of that why I do it that way, and because I know what works, right? But I focus on the words. People say a picture's worth 1,000 words, but they're still words. So I've got a daily email. So daily .fixerwest.com. That'll take you there. Totally free. You're going to hear from me every single day. But with stories, with advice, sales, marketing, jiu-jitsu, family, and then from there you'll get to know if you like my approach. And then there's all kind of offers to buy, right? There's free stuff, there's $7 stuff, there's $47 stuff, there's $5,000 stuff. But you can opt out anytime. But daily.fixerwest.com. Start there, get some coffee, read it each morning, then reach out if you think I can help you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Wes, and want to thank our audience for listening today. Until next time, I'm Phil Portman, and this is Success is Keep Climbing.